Hey everybody, it's Daniel, and welcome back to Spain to Go, the best podcast in the entire multiverse about all things Spain. Today, we're going to talk about Holy Week. This is episode 34. It's the end of March, and in just a couple of days, it's going to be Palm Sunday, the first day of Holy Week. So let's talk a little bit about vocabulary, about some Spanish culture, and about, well, how people practice or celebrate Holy Week in the 21st century. Basically, on the blog, this is called the 4 Things You Should Know About Holy Week in Spain. A lot of these things will be a bit more national. Every region, of course, is its own adventure, and not everybody takes Holy Week equally seriously, but you should be able to find a celebration in any city or large town in Spain where you happen to be. Anyway, after a couple of years in which getting together in groups was largely not happening because of the COVID-19 panic, it looks like most of the celebrations are back on for 2023, or perhaps all of the celebrations. So whether it's processions, desserts, or a trip to the beach, there's something for everyone to enjoy about Spanish Holy Week, whether or not you're a Catholic. First, a bit of vocabulary. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Learn Spanish with Daniel, and over there I have a short video about some Holy Week vocabulary, as well as I think some Christmas vocabulary in a different video, and other useful things. You can check that out. Just Google Learn Spanish with Daniel. Today I will tell you a bit of vocabulary about Holy Week and maybe a little culture while we're at it. First of all, we have Cuaresma. Cuaresma is Lent. I believe Cuaresma probably comes from the word cuarenta, which is 40. Lent is, of course, a period of 40 days. So that is Cuaresma. We have Miércoles de Ceniza. Miércoles de Ceniza is Ash Wednesday, the first day of Lent. In New Orleans, Louisiana, where I have spent some time, they celebrate Mardi Gras, which is the, Fat Tuesday, the day before Ash Wednesday. That is celebrated, I believe, in like the Canary Islands more than anywhere else here in Spain. They call it Carnaval. It's like the Brazilian Carnaval, I guess. I'm sure it's not on the same level of Brazilian Carnaval, but it is celebrated in some places in Spain. It's not a big deal here in Barcelona or in Madrid. You see school children dressed up for Carnaval here in Barcelona, but that's about it as far as I know. Anyway, that's Miércoles de Ceniza. That's Carnaval. Holy Week is Semana Santa. I remember not even really knowing what Holy Week was when I first arrived in Spain. We had spring break back on the ranch, and I believe I had only heard of Holy Week in a James Joyce novel, perhaps. That one called The Portrait of the Artist. No, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Every word in that title is important. I believe I was tested on the meaning of every word in that title in Introduction to British Literature class at university. Anyway, they mentioned Holy Week in there, but I was not aware it was such a big thing in the Catholic world. It is a big thing in the Catholic world. The first day of Holy Week is Domingo de Ramos, which is Palm Sunday. Ramos are branches. And if you go out on Palm Sunday, you will see someone selling palm fronds that are, woven into various shapes, or just palm fronds on their own, I believe. Domingo de Ramos, Palm Sunday. Continuing on a few days more, you have Jueves Santo, which is Maundy Thursday. I don't know why we call it Maundy Thursday. I've forgotten what Maundy means. This is not a big holiday where I'm from. After that, you have Viernes Santo, which is Good Friday. Also, the good is a bit ambiguous. It was the day that Jesus was crucified. I don't know why it's good particularly, but hey, that is neither here nor there. That is Viernes Santo for Good Friday. After that, you have Domingo de Pascua. Domingo de Pascua is Easter Sunday. You could also call it Domingo de Resurrección, Resurrection Sunday. The third day after Good Friday, the crucifixion. I have seen long explanations of the counting in which it wasn't 3 days later, it was the third day, meaning Friday was day 1, Saturday was day 2, and the third day, Sunday, is the resurrection. All week long, you could see some procesiones. These are religious processions, parades of people walking around carrying an image of the Virgin Mary or of Jesus. I'll be talking about that in a little bit. A little bit of general religious vocabulary. We have La Misa, which is Mass, as in Catholic Mass. We have Una Iglesia, which is a church. We have Una Catedral, which is a cathedral. We have Una Basilica, which is a basilica, another large type of church. We'll talk about that in a moment. We also have una parroquia. Parroquia is a parish, which is like a smaller neighborhood church. If you live in a regular neighborhood, you probably have una parroquia, not a basilica or anything like that. About basilicas. Here in Barcelona, we have Sagrada Familia. It's one of the best-known Spanish monuments, and it is a basilica. It is not a cathedral, although many English-speaking media outlets tend to call it a cathedral anyway. It is, I repeat, not a cathedral. Barcelona has a cathedral. The cathedral is dedicated to Santa Eulalia. It is the cathedral of the Holy Cross and Santa Eulalia. Santa Eulalia is our patroness, our patron saint here in Barcelona. I believe the story is that she was packed inside a barrel full of broken glass and rolled downhill around here somewhere. You know, that was her martyrdom. She didn't, I believe, survive that. But, you know, she survives. She lives on in the name of the cathedral, which nobody actually calls Santa Eulalia. It's just La Catedral. Sagrada Familia, on the other hand, is a couple kilometers away across town. It is a basilica, not a cathedral. The difference between a cathedral and a basilica is that a cathedral is where the bishop or the archbishop is headquartered. It has the throne of the bishop or archbishop. It is the head church of the diocese, basically, which is a district within Catholicism. A basilica, on the other hand, is an important church designated as such by the Pope. It could be important because of spiritual reasons, artistic reasons, etc. It's just an important church. A cathedral can be a basilica as well, but not all basilicas are cathedrals. We have another basilica here in Barcelona, which is La Basílica de Santa María del Mar. It's about 10 minutes walk from where I am sitting to record this. It's a big church, not a cathedral, although the distinction is not obvious to everyone in town, I guess. Anyway, a cathedral can be moved by decree of the Pope, but the designation of basilica is permanent. And that's all in Roman Catholicism. Your local version of Christianity may use the words differently. Anyway, now that we've done the vocabulary, let's talk about some typical traditions and some culture. First, the processions. These are the main attractions in most towns during Holy Week, the religious processions. Different churches around town have figures of Christ or the Virgin Mary that spend most of the year indoors. During Holy Week, the parishioners take them out for a slow walk around the neighborhood. And when I say slow, I mean really, really slow. The processions take hours and you might get a bit bored. They can also be very crowded in the bigger cities and also some of the smaller cities. A lot of people will go back to their towns for Holy Week and they will all show up for the processions. So you can go for the bar scene around the procession. You can go to see the religious stuff. You can stick around like I do for about half an hour, enjoy the music and the ambience, enjoy the cross dragging and the girls and women of all ages dressed as widows. There are some cool outfits. However, you don't have to stick around for 5 hours of procession if you don't want to. This year, 2023 Holy Week is in April, and it looks like the weather will be good. But when Holy Week falls in March, there are often news reports full of people down in Andalusia who are sobbing, heartbroken because they spent all year preparing, and on the day of the big procession, it won't stop raining. Hopefully that won't happen this year. We've had, like I said, a lot of prohibitions of these sort of gatherings over the past couple of years because of the pandemic, and this year it looks like everything's back to normal. Anyway, let's talk, while we're on the topic of processions, about those horrendous hoods. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. The pointy hats are a lot like the KKK in the US, where I am very sorry, it's unfortunate, but the processions here have nothing to do with racism. They have nothing to do with whatever they were doing in Mississippi in the 1930s or whatever. The hats worn by people in Holy Week processions are called capirotes, and they symbolize penitence and shame. They come from the Inquisition, actually, and you might be familiar with the concept of a dunce cap. I remember growing up, you would, at least in stories, you would see people wearing dunce caps, like a paper hat that's pointy and means that you did something bad. This is kind of the same concept. In the Inquisition, I believe that the officials running the Inquisition ceremony would wear these. Also, people who had done something wrong would wear a paper version. Now there's no Inquisition anymore, but they're still used in processions. A lot of times people in the processions will be carrying like a large sort of torch or candle or other religious looking implement and wearing a sort of robe and KKK looking hood. It will definitely make you uncomfortable the first few times you see it. It definitely made me uncomfortable the first few times I see it. It may be the case that whoever was the founder of the Klan saw a documentary about Spanish Holy Week situations, 100 years ago and was inspired in the outfits. It's not clear. In any case, the hats over here have absolutely nothing to do with racism. Nothing whatsoever. It is just Spanish culture. You might also, if you go to certain processions, see people walking barefoot, see people walking on their knees in penitence. You might see some self-flagellation. It's a real thing. It's not too common these days, but some people do it. Anyway, enjoy the procession. Don't worry about the hats. I promise you will not come out of a procession more racist than you went in. Moving on, let's talk torrijas. Torrijas are French toast. Basically, just French toast. Just don't tell Spanish people that. Spanish people don't like hearing that a lot of their food is just kind of an imitation of French food. And I could see why. Anyway, I have no idea whether the French actually eat French toast in the US. We dip bread in some milk and then in some egg and we fry it and we call it French toast. Here, their torrijas are generally a special kind of bread soaked in milk with some sugar and fried. It's probably a bit sweeter than the French toast you're used to. Afterwards, they tend to drench it in a syrup made of white wine, and they turn out to be pretty soft and creamy on the inside. They're great if you're into, large amounts of processed carbs and gluten. So you can find a Spanish partner or a Spanish grandma in the next few days if you want somebody to make you some torrijas. Also, a lot of bakeries or cafes tend to serve them around Holy Week for a couple bucks with a cup of coffee. I recommend them. They're just another example of Spain's delicious seasonal pastries, which is an article I have on the blog. I haven't recorded yet, but there tend to be different pastries for every holiday. They're delicious. They're unhealthy. Torrijas are just the kind of pastry Jesus would have wanted you to eat. At least so I imagine. And finally, Holy Week is a good occasion to go to the beach or back to your hometown. Madrid gets a bit quiet during Holy Week. Barcelona tends to get noisier because people from other places come to go to the beach. In any case, it's in Madrid, it's a lot like summer. The people who can get out, get out. A lot of people in Madrid are not from Madrid anyway, so they go back to their hometowns. I had a student named Laura many years ago. She was from a town in Extremadura. She was young, intelligent, not a practicing Catholic at all, but she loved going back to her town for Holy Week to wear a black veil, dress like a, widow, and cry her way through the pueblo for the procession. It's just a fun tradition. Cathartic, I would imagine. Anyway, if you're in Madrid or Barcelona or anywhere else in Spain, feel free to hit up the Google search. There are definitely processions in most places. You could probably also just swing by your church, and I'm guessing there will be something posted about the schedule of when it is. And either way, enjoy. Even if you're not into somber processions and religious faith, you don't have to be. There's the dessert option, there's the beach option, there's the cultural experience option, and in a lot of places, the music can be pretty cool. So in any case, I hope you enjoy your Holy Week wherever you are, in Spain or elsewhere. And until next time, I am Daniel, aka Mr. Chorizo, and I hope you have a great day. For much more, like I said, you can swing by. Learn Spanish with Daniel on YouTube. You can swing by expatmadrid.com, aka The Chorizo Chronicles, for some insight into modern Spanish culture. You can like and subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you are listening. You could give me some stars on Spotify or write a review on Apple Podcasts. Things like that help. You could go to expatmadrid.com/donate and support the cause with a monetary donation. You could call it buying me a virtual coffee. For $2, I can get a coffee here in Barcelona. For $200, I can get 100 coffees. I promise not to drink them all at once. Donate as much or as little as you feel comfortable with. I'm happy for anything you are able to part with. If you have any questions or comments, go to expatmadrid.com and click on the contact form. I think it's probably at expatmadrid.com/contact. And there you could just write me a little message. Tell me what you think about this episode or other episodes of the podcast. You could ask me questions that might make it into a future episode, etc. If you would like to be on the podcast, it would help if you're an interesting person who is Spain related in some way and had something interesting or useful to say about life in Spain. But hey, if you want to be on the podcast, hit me up. I will be doing an interview, I believe, next week with my first podcast guest, and that should be fun. Y nada. I hope you're doing great, and thank you very much for listening. Until next time, and hasta la próxima. Bye.